Hey Thrive family, Pastor Ed here, just wanting to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have an incredible time with your family as you gather tomorrow, or if you don't gather tomorrow, that you would just take time to give thanks in everything that's going on. So in my hand I have a book that I love to pull out during the Christmas season. It's called Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. You might know it as Christmas with the Cranks if you've ever watched that movie. And in it he talks about a couple who is going through some changes. It's a different season for them. And so they arrive at Christmas differently, and they come up with this plan to skip it. To skip all the things they did and just go do something different. To go on a cruise and do the holiday very different. And plans get changed, and it's quite an interesting story. And really the conclusion they come up to the end is, why would we want to skip Christmas? See, I wonder if he wrote that book in this year, he might call it Skipping Thanksgiving. Because I wonder how many of us are just tempted to skip Thanksgiving. Maybe even skip Christmas and just go right into New Year. Because as someone reminded me today, 2021 can't be worse. Let's hope not, right? Let's hope it isn't that way. But there's a temptation when things get hard, and in seasons like this, and 2020 has been quite a year, to skip giving thanks. But you know, if we went back to that first Thanksgiving that we celebrate 400 years ago when the Pilgrims arrive in what is now New England from the Mayflower, only half of them make it through that first winter. And yet, in 1621, they gathered for that first Thanksgiving, giving thanks to God for everything he had done. I've always been amazed at that their suffering and their hurt and their sorrow and the difficult year it was did not deter them from giving thanks. In 1863, in the midst of some of the darkest days in our nation's history, it was Abraham Lincoln who decided we need Thanksgiving. It wasn't a national holiday. People remembered it because of the Pilgrims, but he decided to declare a day of Thanksgiving. And maybe some of them looked and said, really, President Lincoln, in the midst of war? He would have said, especially in the midst of war. Do we need to stop and pause and give thanks? I wonder if he would have noticed that we need it more than ever. Perhaps that's true in 2020. We don't need to skip Thanksgiving. We need Thanksgiving more than ever, because we need that reminder. So it's the Apostle Paul that writes to this church in Thessalonica. And he's nearing the end of this letter, and he needs to say some things quickly, and he just makes 3 points and connects them together. And he says, rejoice always, continually pray, or pray without ceasing. And then he tells them to give thanks in everything. And he ties all those threes together by saying this is God's will for you. To always rejoice, to continually pray, and to in everything give thanks. That means especially in seasons like this, do we need to pause and give thanks. It was James, the brother of Jesus, who wrote in his letter that every good and perfect gift is from above. Every good, every perfect gift has one place of origin, and that's with our Heavenly Father. Now, I know this year's been hard. It has been difficult. It has been challenging, but God's faithfulness has not stopped. The things we have to be thankful for are still numerous. God has still been good. He didn't stop because a virus showed up. He kept being good. He kept being faithful in the midst of all of it. And so I think in 2020, we need Thanksgiving more than ever. I know plans have changed. Things are different this year. Some of you don't get to go with family you would normally be with. For some, your family is no longer here. This has been a hard year, a difficult year, but a year which we must recognize God's faithfulness and goodness. God has been faithful to me. to my family. He has been faithful to you. You've told me about those things. He has been faithful to our church and provided everything that we needed. We have a lot to be thankful for. So I just want to stop and wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time you have tomorrow. Celebrate what God has done in your life over this year. Let's look forward to what God continues to want to do in our lives and in our church. Happy Thanksgiving.